Join Dr. Keitha Story-Stephenson on today's show.
I want to welcome you this evening to an exciting interview with a gentleman with a very varied background and exposure in his own writings that I think you're going to enjoy. His name is Bruce Zen Benefiel. We're going to call him Zen by his nickname because why not? That sounds like a good idea to me. I would go on and on about his background and his training, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with asking asking Zen to tell our audience a little bit about your background, the things that even brought you up to writing.
Oh my gosh, the events started in childhood and advanced and continued throughout my life that has really sent me into a place of trying to understand self and others and how to work together better with everyone that I'm engaged with. And I've had several professions. I started in the aerospace industry when I came to Arizona, was a production control coordinator in charge of $8 million a month in, $7 million a month in shipments, over 800 part numbers. So I had the authority to go anywhere in the plant, but no authority to get anything done. I just had to use my persuasion ability to do so. So I had to learn that real quick. Then I went through a divorce, and so I left the aerospace industry, started producing and hosting a television show called One World that delved into the inner and outer promptings that people get going through their careers, what fears they encountered, more importantly, how they overcame them, and what advice they could give to the audience for their own. Then I got an MBA, a teaching cert, taught high school for 6 years, got an MA in organizational management at the tail end of that, and then got into partnering, which is basically team building for pre-construction efforts with major construction projects, building road, bridge, waterways, and I did work for DOD, federal highways, local municipalities, NAVFAC, Naval Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps of Engineers. And so that kind of also put me in the middle of chaos and having to find order or to establish it with groups. And so it gave me, the opportunity to explore on the fly sometimes of being able to understand and reflect in ways that elevated the conversation about, as opposed to diminishing it. And then I started doing that in my writing. Finally, I think I started writing in the mid-aughts and ended up writing 3 volumes of Zendor the Barbarian, which I eventually compiled into one, and its title became Stubbing My Toe on Purpose, and toe being theory of everything, kind of a Tom Campbell reference that my wife and I both love. So that's kind of in a nutshell. The experiences I had were from, oh gosh, deep internal stuff to having contactee experiences that, most people talk about, but it's rare that you actually meet somebody that's has had them. And so I balanced all of that with professional career and, my life. And even recently, I just got remarried. It's been a wonderful journey with her. She's originally from St. Petersburg, Russia. She's a concert trained pianist. And both of us really enjoy quantum physics and self-development, things of that nature.
Excellent,
There's
excellent.
a lot to write about.
I'm looking at all of the books behind you, all the covers, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing that we would need to probably have you for a whole week. So what we're going to do is we're going to zero in on 2.
Okay.
The one that came out in September of 19, and then the latest one that came out in January of 21.
Okay.
So let's start with the January of 21. So that's the most recent. Ufology Press blog. And as I understand, it's a compilation where you took your blog entries, compressed, composed, grouped, and created an anthology to what you were doing on your blog. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It's got a collection of basically explorations and reflections and sometimes corroborations from others of events and thoughts that I've had about the engagement that I personally have had and others have had, and what it actually means toward advancing our own civilization. Part of the reason why I made the compilation was in 2018, I had a 28-year dream come true with Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove. I mentioned the show that I was doing earlier. When I started that, there were two guys that I wanted to emulate, Bill Moyers and Jeffrey Mishlove. And I hoped at some point in my life that I would be worthy of an interview with one of them. Well, in 2018, Jeffrey reached out through Ufology Press with an interview that he had made with another guy on the Grays, and he thought my audience would be interested. And when I first heard his voice, I knew who it was. My heart just started beating real quick, and I thought, oh my gosh, is it going to happen? And so I watched the interview, wrote an article, posted it, sent him a link, and then I sent him a copy of what's now Stubbing My Toe. And 3 days later, I got an email back, hey, would you like to come talk about it? So I did. And so we did 3 interviews, one on the New World Order, one on the sociology of ufology, and the third on hearing voices. So that was kind of, what can I do in 21, being cooped up and sequestered and not being able to get out. And I thought, okay, well, that's something that at least could offer my audience a compilation so they don't have to read through everything.
Well, that's excellent. That's a very effective way to get a very concentrated amount of information out. So I applaud you. Compilations is excellent for that purpose. Tell me a little bit about 0 to 1. It's 0 to 1, making our way toward a conscious civilization.
0 to 1 came about. I've also been a transformational life coach since 2004. And so I'm looking at helpful ways of engaging our minds and hearts and what it might be like to advance to a type 1 civilization, or with the process of it and how we might be able to get there. That's kind of the 0 to 1, is we're maybe at a 0.3 right now in the Kardashev scale, I think. And some of your audience may be familiar with that. For those who aren't, the Kardashev scale goes through 3 different levels of planetary civilizations. Type 1 manages its own energy and weather and all those kinds of things. Type 2 uses the local solar system it's in as power and energy and things like that. And type 3 uses galactic scale for the same kinds of things. So how do we get there? Where are we at? What do we need to do? How can we as individuals recognize what's already inside of us? And so we have a holistic system within our own bodies. Most of us, our bodies are an instrument. We just don't know how to tune it and play it right yet. Those systems include the chakras, the Chinese meridians, as well as our own, biochemistry. So all of these things work in harmony, and the more we understand that they're present, the more we can at least explore the possibilities of how they communicate with us, which gets into the indigenous philosophies and the first, second, and third brains. They're actually opposite what we do. We start with the head and work our way down into the body. Most of us only live from the head or from the shoulders up, right? So what's the body doing? Well, the first brain's the gut. That's where everything's connected, all the vibrations, and we know from quantum physics that everything is vibration. So where do we connect with that? That's in the gut. It's where we feel everything. That's why we have intuition and we have this gut feeling, right? And we don't necessarily know how we have it, we just do. So we start there and then work our way up and filtering through the heart, and then gradually getting into the head where you make decisions as to what to do with it. Hopefully, you move in the right direction with it because you've been conscious enough to start in an appropriate place rather than on all the internal dialogue and confusion that we have in our minds.
Well, you're speaking my language. My PhD is in alternative medicine, and so I use a lot of the things in that you're discussing in my practice alone. So it makes a lot
Good.
of sense. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to step away for a moment for our sponsors so they can kick in here and give us the goods, and we'll get right back. So if you'll bear with me and hold that thought.
I will.
I want to welcome you back to our interview with Zen Benefiel. If you would, he's been discussing some very great topics with us. I want you to tell me, if you would, please, about the titles that are so varied and yet focused on almost a intergalactic physics level. I need you to tell me a little bit about why you chose the topics that I've been seeing on your wall.
Because they're part of my life. You know, it's much easier to write about what you know in your own experience than to theorize about things. You can include theory along with that, and it's a great way to reference theory and find out, you know, what's real for you. But it's given me the opportunity, two things, to be able to actually put references down and make material available, and the catharsis involved is just amazing.
Well, that's exciting, and that one of the things I like to do on this program is we're talking to young writers too. So that's the tip of, you know, and to me, that's most excellent so far, and that is write what you know, in the sense that it opens that door to not only clearing yourself, but to get your best information out.
Oh yeah.
Well, then that brings me to my question of here. What is your best tip for a writer?
Start.
Ah, excellent. Excellent. Write what you know and start. Very excellent. Okay, tell me, have you had any special training as a writer? Or was it an
Well,
intuitive?
kind of. My mother was an English and literature teacher.
Oh, you couldn't get
And
away from it.
so we would play word games. She and Dad would help me build my vocabulary. You know, they said a word that I didn't know. It's like, okay, what's it mean in context? What do you think? And if I didn't know, then they'd send me to the dictionary. So I have a huge vocabulary that doesn't always fit, but it gave me, and along with Mom, you know, she instilled the desire to write. She even, early in college, I made the freshman compilation volume with a theme, or with a paper on irony and Robert Frost type of stuff. And I wrote about euthanasia and brought in all kinds of different things that were really, you know, kind of sick jokes, but at the same time relevant for the paper. And it was really well accepted. It was hilarious. But, you know, when
Sadly, that probably wouldn't work today.
Oh, no.
Tripped by the counselor on the way out the door.
Oh, sure. But you know, it got me where I needed to be. And then during that time in college, was when I had probably the most profound experience of my life that really set me on the course of diving deep inside to figure out how I worked and what I've learned to call my perfected form, fit, and function is in the world. And something that we all seek, I think. You know, that has to do with our mission and purpose for being here.
Absolutely.
If we have one, and I kind of think we all do. It's just maybe not as glamorous as what we think it might be.
But that's very good observation, extremely good. One of the things that you mentioned was your family, and I read about you, and you have a very large extended family. Do they act as your best support team? Do you have someone there that's going, go, you can do it, we're proud of you, or do you have colleagues that act as that support team?
Actually, I've had none.
No support team.
it's just been my impetus. My kids were kind of estranged. We got divorced when they were very young. They're back in Indiana. I stayed in Arizona. So I have four. I've got 9 grandkids and 2 great grandkids. And then just a few years ago, I got remarried. And so I'm raising a 16-year-old now. And I've got grandkids that old. So it's kind of an interesting story for me. And we're taking care of my wife's 86-year-old mother that came over from Russia, who doesn't speak English. And so we have, but our birthdays are only 1 day apart. So, and we're both cancers, we have this way of communicating that just goes beyond the boundaries of language, which is really neat. I can't say I haven't had any encouragement. I've had folks that have said, hey, you ought to write a book, right? And I've had hundreds of those. So after about a decade of hearing that, I finally said, okay, I'm gonna risk the effort and start writing. And it was a lot of fun. Didn't really care about the marketing or the sales or anything like that. It was just the joy of writing and putting things out that I thought people would enjoy from a perspective that I could offer.
A unique perspective from the previews and the analysis I read online. It goes on and on over every book, and I so enjoyed it. I felt like I was learning just by reading the little synopsis that Amazon would say, or that someone else would mention, or a comment someone said. And it was very, very interesting. It opened up things. I'm like, I'm following this author, and now I'm going to punch all this in, and now I'm going to track these books. So I'm excited about that.
There's a practical side to me as well. One of the books that I wrote in 2014 was a workbook for LinkedIn. I'd been doing a bunch of workshops. I'd been engaged with it for a while, knew my way around in it, loved how it still had some free things as far as their CMS that was involved, which they ended up taking that away. But it helped me to engage a lot of small business owners. And that's part of what I work with, entrepreneurs, small business owners. I co-hosted a small business radio show for 3 years as well, called Two Small Biz Guys.
Oh, very good. I love your titles. Your titles hook you and bring you in, so that's exciting. Tell me, what is your current interest that you put this compilation book out in January, and now what's waiting in the wings? What's the next point that you're heading toward?
Well, I've got an outline, and I'm headed towards kind of looking over the years and gleaning the essence of what I've been able to present, make it a little simpler. Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, then you really don't know it. And so I've been working on that, and the kinds of things that I believe that are happening, especially coming out of the pandemic and the new reset. What's that going to be like? How are we going to create it? So it's going to be a combination of kind of life coaching work, a little bit of quantum physics, maybe some references to conversations with others, not from this world, and conversation with others deep within that we all have access to as well. Mm-hmm. So I want to bring all that together and kind of present it as a possibility as we move forward, because this event has given us all the opportunity, and I think that sequestering and obsession on self-hygiene eventually, as any behavioral mod will do, turns inward, and it gives us the opportunity to re-examine our lives and look at what we're doing or not, and move forward in a way that feels better. One of the things that I came out with was this little saying: we cannot think our way through a system built on vibration. We have to feel our way through it.
Very good. That's very interesting. I will ponder on that tonight. Tell me, in addition to Indie Beacon as a place, resource to get our find you and find your books, and and the indie bookstore is just awesome. So are there other places that we can find your information, or folks can get a hold of you, as folks get a hold of your book, so to speak?
Well, you can look up Zen Benefiel on Amazon, and they're all there.
Okay.
That's probably the central location for them. I have one page on zenbenefiel.com/paying-it-forward, excuse me, where I give away digital copies.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to step away for a moment for our sponsors so they can kick in here and give us the goods. And we'll get right back. So if you'll bear with me and hold that thought.
I will.
Welcome back to us for our final session with Zen Benefiel. We want to thank you for you having been with us tonight. I want to add here in our closing, I'm looking at a man surrounded by the material he has presented, he has compiled, he has published, and he has out there for changing the world and uniting the world. And I want to know the satisfaction that you feel as a writer from being able to express that before people.
Well, the satisfaction comes, and you've read some of the reviews, so some of them are just amazing. One of the things I seek to do is not just talk about stuff. I want to give people a way to experience, because if they don't have that, then it's pretty worthless. There has to be some reference, right? Mm-hmm. So I include in those stories, ways that I was able to get to the place to have those experiences, and how it might work for others to do so as well. So those kind of reviews are just amazing that it actually works. The satisfaction. My wife now is really a big supporter. I didn't have that for many, many years, and I can't tell you the difference that has made in the encouragement.
So we have had the revelations. I've been taking notes that you should write what you know. That's the most excellent door to open. I have heard that the best tip you can find is to start. Sitting on the couch will never get anything out of you.
No, it doesn't matter what you write, just start it. It'll eventually, get that flow going.
Yes, and there is truth. The more you write, the more you can write. That's most certainly true.
There's a part of you that I think comes forth once you get beyond that emotional reticence, and it's almost as though it just becomes a river that flows out of your fingertips.
It almost becomes where you cannot not do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It becomes your life force. I appreciate you coming with us tonight and taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate, as one writer to another, what you have put out into the world to change who we are and where we're headed.
And if there's some interest in following up, I have multiple websites, but there's one that I finally put together. I'd avoided putting a personal website together, but it's zenbenefiel.com, zenbenefiel.com.
Very good. So folks can get a hold of you. It has been my pleasure. I wish I could shake your hand. It's been my pleasure.
Virtual hug.
Virtual hug. Safe virtual hug. Here, wait, I'll put my mask up and we'll do that.
Oh my God, please don't.
I thank you for your time and your energy and what you have shared, and I look forward to being able to find you on any Beacon bookstore where we can find all of these available, or a resource through to get to them, correct?
Mm-hmm. I know I have some up there. I'm not sure if I've got them all yet.
Okay, and so we'll look for them. We'll get ourselves to a place where we are schooled. I too have held fast to what you shared of Einstein's quote. I modified it: if you can't teach it to a 5-year-old so they can repeat back what they heard, you can't teach it. So you've got to get that information out. So this will change a whole lot of folks.
Well, you mentioned that, and I'll offer one last tip. Consider your audience and the language they're listening in.
Yes, yes. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.